88-year-old Lou Holtz versus 45-year-old Ryan Day. Holtz tweeting, and I quote, "If Notre Dame doesn't win, it's because we want to preserve Ryan Day's job. I was originally going to be home and not go to the game, just be there in spirit, but now I'm dragging my body along as well. We'll see you at the Natty." Signed, Lou Holtz. That was Dr. Lou, who has thrown his hat back into the ring here with Ryan Day. Josh Pate joining us now. Pate.
Can we get fired?
No. Why would I? For what?
Doing impressions?
Of Lou Holtz? A lot of people would be fired if that was the case. Pate, 20 years from now, you're trying to explain the Lou Holtz-Ryan Day rivalry to your kid. How do you explain it? Where do you start?
I can't explain it to anyone's kid now. Why do we have to go 20 years down the road? I was there last year, Christopher. Beautiful weather conditions, crystal clear skies, 70 degrees at kickoff, phenomenal game between Ohio State and Notre Dame, and the most out-of-field post-game interview haymaker of all time, elder abuse included, just gets like hurled by Ryan Day, and I didn't know it had been said, so people were texting me about it before I actually saw it, and I'm thinking they're trolling me. No, he just flat out called out Lou Holtz, which is akin to what you would see this time of year in the lead up to WrestleMania. I get that on Monday night, but I don't. It was new. It's still new to me. I still don't know how I would explain this. And Lou Holtz, the worst part of it all is Lou Holtz seems to be the one that's in on the joke, if it makes any sense. Good for Lou Holtz. Good for him.
Yeah, how is that possible? The 88-year-old guy is the one who kind of is in on it, and Ryan Day is like, "I'd like to know where Lou Holtz is right now."
You think is he really going to go to the game, Josh?
You got to interview.
He's going to drag his body to the game. It's not just going to the game, Amanda. It is the dragging of one's body to the game, which is his words, thankfully not mine, because unlike Christopher, I do think we could get fired for this, but we're just quoting him, so we can't get fired for quoting him.
Yeah, he just had a tickle in his throat.
If Ryan Day wins the national championship, he will hold up Lou Holtz's body before he'll hold up the national championship trophy. That's what I want to see on Monday night.
What, like bench press him?
Yeah, dude. Pow!
Okay, Chris, this is getting off the rails. Let's get into the game. How about that, Josh? You're going to be there. I think you're taking off tomorrow or something. It's Friday. We're getting close to it. We're going to go keys to the game. We're going to talk about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. It's more of a walk in the park for Ohio State, I think, at this point. Notre Dame, look, they're here for a reason. They've been very resilient all season. If they are going to win it, how do they do it?
I think they have to figure out how to win a game by scoring 20, and if they get any more than that, that's wonderful. But I'm not counting on any more than that against Ohio State. Now, the good news is they held Ohio State to 17 in that game we're talking about last year. Texas just held Ohio State down to around this point total. Michigan held Ohio State down to around that point total. So it's not impossible. It just feels that way because Ohio State's rolling right now. I'll tell you how that can happen. Obviously, turnovers. But if you don't get a bunch of turnovers, Amanda, if I could just force Ohio State to go on a few fruitless drives, like the 10-play, 73-yard, time-consuming drive, but then they turn it over on downs inside the 10, or maybe I get a chip shot field goal that's missed, that kind of stuff does more to even these kinds of games and balance these kinds of games out than anything. But then I've still got to score. So I can't let Ohio State's defensive line take the game over. I've got to be explosive enough. I got to get enough through the passing game, which they did, by the way, against Penn State. If all that stuff breaks their way, the line's not 18.5. I mean, we're talking about a single-digit line here. Crazier things will have happened, contrary to the build-up to this game. But I do agree, a lot has to go right for them.
Yeah, you mentioned, we're going with the defense there has to be good. Ohio State has to make some mistakes, and they have to score, and that includes Riley Leonard. I was looking at his stats a couple days ago. Look, against, non-conference games, and not that they really have a conference, but up against top 25 teams, not so great. What do you want to see from Riley Leonard in this game in order to get all those points on the board that they need to beat Ohio State?
Just fall forward. Just be good on third downs. Like, he had 90 yards passing against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, but I thought he played a phenomenal game. It's just you got to condition your mind to understand the Notre Dame quarterback in 2024/5 playing a phenomenal game doesn't mean he throws for 330 and 4 touchdowns through the air. He converted some critical third downs. He made sure to not turn the ball over. And then fast forward to the Penn State game last week, they had 3 passes, I think, of 30-plus yards. They had a 54-yard touchdown pass. That's not what I'm counting on from him, let me be clear. But if he could give me 1 or 2 of those, not turn the ball over, just make sure they stay ahead of the chains and, not get tackled for loss on first down, which Ohio State's prone to do to you, then I can rest with the outcome if I know my quarterback position doesn't lose me the game, because I know how complimentary the rest of my team is.
One good thing Notre Dame has going for it, Amanda, what?
Well, maybe we're on the same page. I was going to say our good friend Brady Quinn just put another child into the world today.
Another Quinn.
Another Quinn, a fifth Quinn.
A 5th Quinn kid.
Does that help
Notre Dame? I mean, it can't hurt. You got another fan cheering on.
He had the other one baptized.
But Notre Dame, nobody's been better at Notre Dame than forcing turnovers this season. Obviously, I mean, if they're +2, +3 in the turnover battle, they've got a good chance. For Ohio State, Josh, is it as simple as just, don't screw it up?
That's what Ryan Day is going to say.
Feels that way. It's exactly what he's going to say. I think a couple of things you can't afford to have happen. You can't get near halftime and realize, wow, they've drug the game into the mud, and they've drug us out in the deep end a little bit. Because that's exactly, I think, down to the phrase, what I found myself saying when I was watching the Ohio State-Michigan game. So then you get in the playoff, and everyone's like, oh, that can't happen again. Well, it started to feel that way in the Texas game for a little while, but Ohio State found a way to rectify that in the second half. Also, you can't let Notre Dame middle 8 you here. I'm trying to recite a lot of stats off the top of my head, but they are something like 27-0 against their opponents in the past 2 games in those last 4 minutes before half, first 4 minutes out of half. I mean, they've been masters at that. So humble and free advice to Ryan Day, not Lou Holtz related. If you guys win the toss, you need to defer. Find a way to disrupt that, because Notre Dame's been on a roll with that. I also think, Chris, you can't be abandoning what got you here. Like, Notre Dame's got a really good secondary. They play a lot of man coverage, and they've been good against everyone else. But you got to look in the mirror, kind of like they did before they played Tennessee, and they said, we're Ohio State. We've got all these dudes at receiver. We're going to turn it loose. And they did, and it was Tennessee's worst nightmare. And then it was Oregon's worst nightmare. And I'm not saying that you'd run the score up or anything against Notre Dame, but if you do that, and you play sound, fundamental ball with your defensive front, they've held teams under 70 yards per carry or per game. They've held teams under, I think they've accumulated 16 sacks in the playoff. If they do that, I don't know what the path is for Notre Dame. So a lot of it is like, ball's in your court. I won't be as disrespectful as to say just don't screw it up, but you kind of do have to screw this up for Notre Dame to have that path.
Ohio State was able to have such a chip on their shoulder coming into the playoff because of that Michigan loss, and a lot of people saying Ryan Day's job is in jeopardy, and they go out.
Which some will still say.
Sure, if they don't win this thing, some will say, yeah, Ryan Day needs to go. We didn't win the national championship. We didn't beat Michigan. All that. They were able to kind of play the role of an underdog in their own minds against, especially Oregon, and then they had Texas last week. Is there any worry that they have lost that chip now that everybody is picking them to win this game and maybe win big?
No, because I don't think that's the source of the motivation to begin with. I think the source of the motivation was, how could we have fumbled it this fantastically against Michigan? How could we have ruined this for ourselves? Oh, wait, we didn't ruin it. We have another opportunity. We're going to host a playoff game where we're favored, where we're going to destroy them anyway. We're going to go play Oregon. We are a slight favorite. We'll destroy them anyway. We played Texas. Prior to that game, we would have been a dog, according to Vegas. Well, then we get to the game, we're nearly a touchdown favorite. Well, we beat them by 14 anyway. At no step in this playoff process do I think you could have fairly categorized them as the underdog. And I don't think that's where it comes from. That's where it comes from Notre Dame, maybe. I think for Ohio State, it's just understanding what you're built to do. They were all in on 2024. When I was there in the spring, that's all their staff talked about. We are all in on 2024. We can't even see 2025. Well, you got to make sure you win a championship if that's your mentality. They got 4 more quarters to go. I really don't care what point spread is, because I don't think they care about who the underdog is. I think they care about maximizing this team's potential, which has always been a national championship.
Ohio versus the world. You're going to hear it tonight.
I think
on Monday
Lou Holtz
night,
has become bulletin board material.
Has he?
I don't know. That would be very odd. That would be very strange. You mentioned maybe Ohio State's not paying attention to the spread. We are paying attention to the spread. It is a big one. They're favored by 8.5. I'm going to give Chris Hassel credit for this. He found this stat. Only 5 spreads larger in national championship games, and in all but 2 of those, the underdog has won, including Ohio State all the way back in 2002 against Miami here. What's your pick in this game?
I am going to make that repeat itself to prove me wrong, because I'm not going to try and throw a dart all the way across the room and hit the bullseye here. I'm going Ohio State to win, Ohio State to cover. Amanda, this game feels to me like 20-9 or like 23-13 or something like that, where it's not a blowout, it's competitive. Ohio State doesn't run it up, but defensively they're just so suffocating that they probably don't need to score a ton. So I got Ohio State winning and covering.
Both teams seeking their 9th national championship in the AP era. That's since the mid-30s or so. Only Alabama has more. Josh, thank you so much. Looking forward to your coverage out there in Atlanta for the Natty. But first things first, you got another pod tonight. What's coming up?
A whole lot. And then also, hey, you just kind of brushed by this Ryan Day thing. I am telling you, Amanda's right about this. There will be a small but vocal group of people, if they don't win this, that say, wait, we didn't beat Michigan, we didn't win the Big Ten, we didn't win a national title. All that really changed is we played some expanded playoff games. We failed again. I don't agree with it per se, but that will be out there. I will try and beat that down as much as I can tonight ahead of time.
Okay, looking forward to it on the Josh Pate College Football Show, which can be seen Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 8 Eastern on the YouTube page there at Josh Pate CFB on Instagram and X.